This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, JM Ryerson.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Let's Go Win podcast, where we are here to help you be happy, healthy, and wealthy, as is always our focus. Today, we have a gentleman that is doing all of those things. He's done it successfully in business. So we're definitely going to focus on some of that wealth, but I think so much of what he talks about is really going to creep into those other sides as well. Brian Will is an industry expert in sales and management consulting, best-selling author of The Dropout, Multimillionaire, and his second and newest book, Know, The Psychology of Sales and Negotiations, and a serial entrepreneur with over 35 years of experience. He has created 7 highly successful companies across 4 industries worth over $500 million at their peak. Today, Brian is a visionary business leader owning restaurants in Atlanta, an insurance and technology company in Denver, a real estate business in Georgia and Florida. His expertise in turnaround projects and driving billions in sales make him a sought-after consultant and speaker. Brother, it sounds like you've been busy. You have your hands full. Thanks for making the time, man.
JM, this is awesome. I appreciate you having me on here today. We're going to have some fun.
So I have to just start the first book, or at least the book that the Dropout Multimillionaire. Is it really what it means? Like, hey, man, school's not for me. I drop out and I'm right into business, because clearly your business pedigree, you have done extremely well. But where'd you learn all this, man? The School of Hard Knocks, or did you come out of the womb just knowing like, I'm going to crush it in business?
No, man, I had a rough background, bad childhood, abuse, all kinds of bad things. Failed out of high school, actually, at 16. Did manage to graduate, got back in, graduated with a 1.2 GPA. Got kicked out of the house, no place to go, had to join the military. Got off active duty, tried to hold jobs. I couldn't. And so I guess I decided one day that, I can't work for anybody else. Let's see if I can work for myself. So I started my first business when I was 21. It was a landscaping business. Did really well until it didn't. It's one of my favorite things to say. When it crashed and burned and I lost everything, learned a lot of good lessons there. And then went on and built many more companies after that, struggled for a long time until I learned a few lessons and finally hit it big when I was 40. And that was the first company that really took off, and we made a killing on that one. Did 2 venture capital exits, 1 private equity exit, built another consulting company, got into politics, wrote books, bought restaurants. Today, I kind of manage my portfolio of businesses and run my mastermind and my coaching program. And yes, everything was learned through the School of Hard Knocks. That's the long answer to your short question.
Well, I'm glad you gave me a little bit of insight, because so often, I could read that bio and it's like, oh, Brian just crushes it, man. It was so easy for him. And that's never the real story. Tell me, brother, what did you figure out? Let's just take that first business. I want to dive into the mindset of that first business that was doing great until it wasn't. What was that missing piece? What was lacking there?
When I was young, I was very hard-headed. I had a chip on my shoulder. I didn't listen to people. I was going to do everything my way. And understanding, coming from a background where I had nothing and it was kind of rough. When I started making a little bit of money, I did what most new money people do, and I spent it. In fact, I spent more than I had. And 2 of my biggest lessons I learned in that first failure, one was I was living way above my means. I had no money in the bank. I had no backup in case something happened. I had 3 cars and 2 houses and a motorcycle, and I thought I was living large until my business got into trouble, by the way, which just happened in COVID. We saw the same thing happen to people. And I had no way to keep myself out of trouble, and I ended up losing everything. Had to sell everything I had just to pay the bills. So I learned 2 things. A, don't live above your means. B, don't have a business where 90% of your revenue is coming from one source. And that was a big one for me. And that's why I got in trouble. We were doing really well with one giant commercial contractor until they fired us. And then we were in trouble. So 2 big lessons I've never duplicated for the rest of my life. They carried with me forever.
Yeah, it is fascinating how it's not always the wins that really define who we are, but rather learning from the failures, which isn't really a failure anyway, learning from the lesson that that universe, God, whatever's trying to teach us, like, hey, Brian, yeah, that money's not always going to be there. But it's so fascinating, brother, how often you see this where people do get a little bit of money, and perhaps, again, they didn't come from it. So now it's new. Now it's like, hey, I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to enjoy the ride. What would you tell somebody that's stepping into wealth, maybe for the first time, where it's pretty exorbitant and they don't see a stopping point? Because I've been there. And it's like, yeah, that cabin, that sure sounds good to have that mountain cabin and this and that, because that money's always going to keep coming. It's never going to dry up.
Yeah, that's the famous last words of every professional athlete, right? This money's going to come forever. So we call this building blocks of wealth, and it's securing each building block as you go, right? So I always tell people, if your business starts to take off, do not increase your lifestyle, secure the lifestyle you have today. Right? That means put enough cash and assets away so that it can't be taken away from you. My big mistake was when we got in trouble, my entire life was taken away from me because I had no reserves, no safety net. So secure your lifestyle. Once your lifestyle is secured, then you can go to the next level and then secure that lifestyle, and then go to the next level and secure that lifestyle. I met with a guy not too long ago, and he said, man, the company's doing really well and I got all this money in the bank, but I don't spend any on myself. When can I start spending money on myself? I said, when you have more money than you have debt, which means you have security, then you can start spending money on yourself. But secure the lifestyle you have before you increase it, and that will never fail you, ever.
I imagine, well, actually, you have a great head of hair, but for some of us, less gray hair, less lost hair would have happened had we heard that advice earlier. As you made your way through making the first business, kind of learn that lesson, then you go into the next one. Clearly you found I don't know, recipe, or certainly a diagram, a program where you're like, okay, I'm evaluating this business. This one makes sense to me, because with how not eclectic, I don't know, diverse, I guess, really what you're into in business. How do you pick and choose what business to pour your energy into, brother? Because again, insurance, technology, restaurant, I mean, you have stuff in different sectors. So clearly you figured some blueprint out that's working.
So we get into what we call the 4 personalities in business, right? And by the way, everything I'll tell you, you'll probably hear remnants of some other book you've probably read. And this one comes a lot from the book, The E-Myth, right? There are different personalities in businesses. There's the entrepreneur, there's the technician, there's the manager, and there's a salesperson, right? These are the same 4 personalities I talk about in my books. Most people who start businesses are the technician, which means I'm very good at a skill set, and that's the business I'm going to build. And that's not a bad thing. I was never a technician. I was always an entrepreneur, which means strategic, 30,000 feet. I understand business. I don't understand the technicalities in the business. Like, I own restaurants. I don't know how to cook, right? I know nothing about how to run a restaurant. I know how to run a business. I own a technology company. I don't know anything about technology and programming and computers. I can barely work my phone, but I know how to run a P&L, and I know how to run a business. And that's what's important. Tim Cook doesn't know how to make iPhones. He knows how to run Apple, right? So if you really want to be able to diversify businesses and be a serial entrepreneur, you need to be good at the business end of what you do, not as much on the technical end. Does that make sense? So too many people are all technically focused and they're not business focused. And that's also why they don't scale. And it's why a lot of them get into trouble.
How did you find your zone of genius, if you will, where instead of trying to be both the solopreneur, the entrepreneur that's trying to do everything, trying to be the technician, how do you bring those people along to say, look, man, I see something here. You have a good business and I can make it better. When did you figure when did you kind of figure that part out? Because I think so often people get caught in that small business. I have to do it all. My fingers are in every crevice and there's still one more hole I can't plug. How do you get yourself out of that, brother? Because I see this so often with people that I personally care about, people I've coached, where if they would just empower others or find others. But I'm curious what your path looks like to really allow that to happen.
I think you nailed it, JM. you talked about people you coach that are struggling with this. The problem is the people you're coaching aren't listening to you. Okay. So if you're going to get a coach, and by the way, it's one of the most important things you can do in business, because as I like to say, you are who you are. Who you are got you where you are. If you want to go someplace bigger, then you need to change who you are. And the way to do that is to bring a coach in who can tell you what to do and what not to do, the mistakes you're going to make, because they've already been there and done that. They've seen what you're about to go through. They know those mistakes. And if you will just listen, and that involves checking your ego, which a lot of entrepreneurs have a problem with, listening to the coach that's telling you something, because I promise you, they know what's about to happen. So if you're coaching students who are struggling, it's because they're just not damn listening. And I hate to say that, that's a fact, right? So I tell people in business all the time, whether you are a startup, whether you're a 1 to 10 million, which is our target market for our mastermind, you need to check your ego, understand that you don't know how to get to the next level, find the person who's done that, then listen to what they tell you. Just listen, make a conscious decision to listen, and your business will grow, right? I have always been a master at numbers. I don't know why I'm like an idiot savant. My ex-wife said just idiot, but I throw idiot savant in there, right? So I can look at a P&L, and to me, it speaks volumes about your business. I don't care what your business is. If you break it down and show me your core metrics, or if I do what we call pattern recognition on your historical analysis of your P&L, I can tell you what your business is doing, and I can tell you what the future holds. That's just a skill set I've got. If you're not good at that, then you need to find somebody who is, because I'm telling you, that is the key to growing, scaling, and having a massively profitable business. CEOs need to know numbers. And if you're not good at it, find somebody who is, and then listen to them. That's the key.
Yeah, I really like how you talked about the ego side of things, where the entrepreneur doesn't want to listen, or they get so wrapped up into the title of CEO, when the truth is, for instance, I'm not, in my opinion, the best CEO. I am a great leader. I know that. I've built teams. I'm really good at it.
Yep.
And I accepted that a long time ago, where I was like, you know what I love to do? I love to rally people to go accomplish. Am I the greatest visionary or strategy? I'm not.
Mhm.
But often I see people hanging on so strong to like, oh, I'm CEO. What would you tell somebody to just, so they can be at ease and at peace, and to find that, I call it zone of genius. I think I got it from Patrick Lencioni. He had kind of coined that. But what would you tell somebody that they're just not, they're a good person, they're good, they have the potential, but they're just so stuck in being in a position that they're just not fit for?
Ego, 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 ego. It's one of my 5 keys to success. It's having an honest conversation with yourself about who you are, and more importantly, who you're not. Too many people are trying to be something they're not. I had a conversation with a guy the other day who is trying to raise money for his company. And I said, who's the CEO? And he said, me. And I said, okay, you're trying to raise money, but you're failing. Are you willing to give up your CEO title? And he said, no. I said, why? He goes, because I can figure out how to be a CEO. I'm like, dude, if you're trying to figure it out, you're not the CEO. Entrepreneurs aren't necessarily good CEOs. I'm like you, JM. I am terrible at details. Don't ask me to run things. Let me do what I do. And I have other people that do what they do, and we succeed because of it. So you're right. That CEO title ego has brought down more people than you can possibly imagine. And at some point, if your business isn't doing what you want it to do, if it's not growing and scaling the way you want it, if you're not as profitable as you want to be, you are the problem. Get a coach, make a decision to listen to them, and do what they say. And maybe replace yourself, right? I've always told people, the more I can replace myself, the more freedom I have. I can go to Park City and ski for a month, which I did in February. I can run my business from my cell phone, because I have teams in place that do everything. And I answer an occasional email. I do this and I do that. But do you really want to be wrapped up 100 hours a week in a business, or would you rather have a business that takes care of you and takes care of your family and creates generational wealth and allows you to go skiing for a month? What is it you want?
Yeah, I love that. And you said a very, very important word for me, for my listeners. When you said the word freedom, this is what I want people to hear, because I think so often we get flashes of, oh, it's going to be glitz and glamour, and it's going to be recognition and all these things. the truth is, when you get down to the core of why did you start the business was created so that you can create that financial freedom, so that you can spend time with the people that you most love. Somewhere along the line, you've said the word ego several times, that gets inflated. Now we start valuing that wanting recognition, maybe, or wanting to find value. If you go back to the reason you started the business, you will get back. Have you seen that to be the case as well, brother? Because I just, this concept of freedom and being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it, being financially free, that sounds a hell of a lot more appealing to me than 60, 80, 90 hours a week just grinding.
I had a conversation with a guy the other day, and I said, be careful you don't win the world and lose everything that was important to you in the process. Right? I worked dark to dark for 20 years. And by the time we hit it, my wife didn't want to be with me anymore. That's like my biggest failure in life is I wasn't who I needed to be for 20 years because I was too busy working. So yeah, I sold the companies and we made truckloads of money and everything was awesome. And then I went through a divorce. And let me tell you, that's rough. So you don't want to forget why you're doing this. Your family doesn't give a shit if you make another $100,000. They want dad home, playing with the kids and taking the wife out to dinner. So you got to be real careful with that, or you will win the world and lose what's important.
Brother, that is profound. And I really do hope that sinks in for people, because when you talk to people that have found real freedom and success financially and relationship wise and spiritually and all those things, they say that exactly what you just said. I want to get into a term that is so interesting to me, and it's soft skills. And then the reason that term is so interesting to me is because I think they're so vital. And yet when we say soft, I think people are like, don't need them. I'm going to be the strategy guy. I'm going to be the most, fierce negotiator. What do you mean when it comes to soft skills, and why is that so important for businesses to embrace for real scalable growth?
So I like to use extremely simple examples, right? I did 8 years in the military, and we used to teach at a 5th grade level. That's what we did. We do that so people can clearly understand the concept we're trying to bring across to them. And one of the things I tell people all the time is I use the example of Joe the plumber, right? Joe the plumber starts his own business. He was plumbing for 10 years, working for XYZ company. One day, Joe goes up and says, screw this. I want to make my own money. I'm going to start Joe's Plumbing. If Joe's plumbing business fails, it will not be because Joe doesn't know how to be a plumber. It will be because Joe doesn't know how to run a business. And running the business is the soft skill side of whatever it is you do, right? Soft skills are things like understanding that your filter, what's in your brain here, and I have a whole half a book on this. Your filter doesn't know how to accept and reject information so that you can make quality decisions. That's a filter, right? That's a soft skill. It's understanding how to run the business end of the business. It's relationships. It's dealing with your people. It's all the things that aren't doing exactly what it is your business does. Well, if you're a landscaper, that's digging holes and mowing grass, but there's a business side behind it. Even if you're an architect, there's drawings, and then there's a business side behind it. So you need to learn the business skills before you end up having a problem in the company because you thought it was all about the technical side. I find this a lot with engineers, by the way. Engineers think that their business is all about engineering, and somebody's still got to buy your product.
There is a reason that you have customer relationship managers or, someone on that side making the product, which is, I think, why somebody like, let's say Steve Jobs, for example, he was brilliant because he took something complex and made it so simple. He would always make it so simple. And really, he wasn't building the iPhone, right? He came up with maybe a thought, an idea, and he said, all right, really bright, intelligent people, go put it together. But he had this ability to deliver it. And clearly that is, would you call that a soft skill, Brian? Is that something that he had? Because the reason I struggle with soft is I want people to embrace it and not think it's not important, not think that, I don't know why. I've just had this argument with clients through the years. It's like, that's no longer a soft skill. That's an essential skill. what you have right there. So I guess to the Steve Jobs question, did he have that ability to just bring it to the world so good? Was that part of him?
The world runs on sales, JM. We both know this, right? I don't care what you have, somebody's got to sell it. Steve Jobs was the master at selling concepts and ideas. At the end of the day, though, he was still selling it to the public. And he just had a way to present it so that people, they couldn't live without it. And that is an amazing soft skill set that he had, right? He wasn't selling the computers. He wasn't selling the iPhones. He wasn't building them. He was selling the world on his ideas. And that's an amazing soft skill in selling. So that's what he was the best at.
Let me ask you, was there someone as you came up, because you've mentioned coaches, and you don't have to name names, but someone that you really looked at and you said, gosh, I'm grabbing something from this guy, something from this gal. Was that kind of how you built up this level of knowledge? I know you said through the School of Hard Knocks, but you also mentioned really grabbing a coach, finding a mentor. Is it a collection of so many, Brian, or was there one in particular that really just, took you under your wing?
I've had a few mentors. The one that meant the most to me was Steve. And I had sold my first company to a little venture capital deal we did. Didn't make a ton of money. I made enough that I was secure and I was good, but we started the next company and I still had a little chip on my shoulder and I was still trying to do things my way. And my friend Steve, who I respected because he had done just amazing things. But one of the things I respected the most about him was the way he dealt with people, the way he talked to them, the way he dealt with them, the way he gave when he didn't have to, that was the most amazing thing. So I'll give you a little story. And this is when I really learned that listening to somebody else is the most important thing you can do. So I had an insurance agency again. It was an online agency, one that I eventually sold to a venture capital deal, but not yet. And Steve came to me and he said, hey, we want to start this internet company. I'd already done it once. I sold it. I want to do it again. He said, I'm going to bring you in because I like you. You're my friend. I'm going to give you equity in my company. This is what Steve would do. He'd just give equity away to everybody. It was crazy. And I said, okay. And he said, look, I'm going to put $500,000 in this company and we're both going to guarantee the debt. So if your company does really well, you'll pay me back. If ours does well, either way, we both owe the $500,000 and we're trading equity. I said, okay, done. A year goes by and my CPA walks into my office and he says, Brian, you got to shut it down. I said, why? He goes, they've lost the whole $500,000. They've generated zero revenue. Things going to bankrupt you. You owe $500,000. I was freaking out. Like I'd never made really a lot of money. I made like $100,000 a year. This is back in 2003, 2002. I went home. I told my wife, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go bankrupt. I'm going to lose $500,000 in this deal. I'm freaking out. So I come into work the next day and my friend Steve comes in my office and he says, hey, Brian, we need to buy some more servers. Going to put another $67,000 in the company. You're going to guarantee it. I said, Steve, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm out. We're losing money. I don't know what the hell y'all are doing back there, but I don't know anything about it. I need out of this deal. I don't want to put $67,000 in. We've generated no revenue. He said, Brian, it's going to work. I said, Steve, it ain't working. He said, listen, I've done this before. I'm telling you, I promise you it's going to work. I said, it's not working. He said, all right, I'll make you a deal. You give me my equity. You can walk away from the $500,000. You owe me nothing. And we stay friends. I don't want this money to come between us, but you got to make a decision right now. And I was like, oh my God, I'm sitting here looking at a guy who's way more successful than me. And I'm over here with my little ego, right? Going, I should listen to myself. I should listen to myself. I'm the smart guy here, right? I looked at him for a couple of minutes and finally I was like, okay, you know what? I'm in. If I'm going down with you. So I'm in. And he said, all right, I'm glad you said that. I never want to hear that again. And the next month we did our first deal and we did $6 million in revenue. And then we did 13 million. And then we did 32 million, then 60 million. And we sold the company for $80 million, 2 years from that conversation. 80 million. And it scares me to death today to think about what my life would be like if I'd have said I'm out. And that was the day I realized that I needed to listen to other people that have been there and done that, who have seen the mistakes, that know what's going to happen based on their experience. That was when I learned how important coaching was, right? So that was the guy for me. Steve was my guy. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple months ago, but he was the guy.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty amazing guy to really give you that option, but to say, clearly he's in your corner saying, "Come on, man, stick with me."
Yeah.
It's amazing. Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book, Tipping Point, and that's
Love it.
really, yeah, one of these defining moments, which clearly that was a defining moment for you in professionally, personally,
Yep.
confidence wise. I mean, my God, I can't imagine how much more confidence you gained from this defining moment. When somebody's faced with that right now, Brian, because you know how it is, man, it feels like the world's crumbling down on you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't win. There's no light to be seen. It's only dark. But the truth is, if any of us that have come through that darkness, it's always light on the other end. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying to be foolish with your money. That's not the point. But there are moments to look in the mirror and see what you have inside, to see if you got it, to make the right decision, to continue through. What would you say to somebody that's going through that dark moment right now?
You need to find somebody that, again, I hate to keep repeating myself, but you need to find somebody that's been there, done that, and bounce your thoughts, the scaredness you've got, bounce everything off of them and get their perspective, right? I'm telling you, that's so important. And then when you get that perspective, you got to listen. I will back this up and say, you need to vet these people very, very, very hard if you're going to take their advice. I don't, people that have people that tell me they're master class certified or master certifications, I'm like, okay, you've been online, you spent $49. I'm no longer talking to you. Like if you have to lead with, I have a master certification, then you don't know shit. Okay. I want to hear that. I want somebody who's been in the trenches, has struggled, survived, and won, who can tell me what's about to happen. And then you got to take their advice. So find somebody, vet them hard. And once you find them, you got to trust them. And that's what you need to do, man.
Yeah, I love it's so important, because if somebody's got this golden resume where they've never failed, I don't know that that's the person I'm sitting with, man. I want somebody that's got their ass kicked. They had to get back off the canvas and say, yeah, man, I did. I lost a business. I was in trouble. Because if they weren't, did they ever really take a risk? How
are they going to know how to get through failure if they haven't done it?
Yeah. Which leads me to my next one, brother. And I love this topic. It's arguably my favorite topic, and it's growth mindset. Mindset, one of my favorite books. My audience is probably tired of me hearing talk about Carol Dweck and how brilliant she is. What does that mean to you, brother, when I say growth mindset, and how are you applying it to your daily life, to your businesses today?
Yeah. So I have a take on this, that if somebody's asking me the question, my first question back to them is, you need to tell me what it is that you want, right? Before we talk about where you're going to go. I talk about this like, well, if you tell me that I've got a little business and I'm making 100 grand a year and I'm happy with that, well, then there's no reason for us to talk about growth mindset. You're happy with what you got, right? If you tell me I'm at X and I want to go to Y, that's a little bit of growth mindset. Then I'm going to show you how to do that. On the other hand, if you come back and tell me that you have some great, big, gigantic goal, and that's what you really want to grow to, now we got something we can start planning towards. We can do what I call reverse engineering the end goal back to where you are today, setting incremental progressive goals, and we can build something to it. But everything comes back to the first question, and is what it is that you want, right? If you're a solopreneur and that's all you want, then that's fine. If you're a solopreneur and you want to build an actual company that has intrinsic value that you can exit down the road, then you got to quit being a solopreneur, and we got to change the way you think and change what you're doing. Systems and processes are different between those two. There are negatives and positive to both, but first question is, what do you want? And then we'll figure out what that growth means to you.
Yeah, that's well put, brother. As you were talking, I was thinking about the evolution of me in business. How when I was in my 20s, man, it was all about badge of honor, how many hours I could put in. That meant that I was crushing it. It didn't matter. Money wasn't even the thing. It was that badge of honor for putting in the work. I've noticed recently, the last 5 years, let's say, I really love passive income. And I mean, I love it. If I could talk to my 20-year-old self, I know what I would tell him. I would say, passive income is not a bad thing. It's an amazing thing. And it doesn't matter how hard that you work. And I'm not saying don't work hard. So I'm clear, audience, I'm not saying don't work hard. But what I am also saying is, what are you putting value on? And what are your thoughts to that, Brian? Because that was such a it was an eye-opening thing where I had somebody in my father-in-law that came from Thailand with $200, didn't have shit, built it to, I don't even know what his net worth is. It's a lot. He's done extremely well, but he did it with real estate, passive income, things that now I value, but I didn't hear it when I was 20 from him, man, when I was 25. What could you possibly, how can we get people to hear it so that they don't necessarily put all their eggs into it matters how hard you work? That's the, badge of honor. I don't know, man. That's what I wish I could tell myself. And I've told my audience before, but I would love your take on it.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is, I was actually out this morning and I had to drive back here to come do this podcast with you. And when I was coming back past a crew that was laying pipe underneath the road, I don't know what the pipe's for, but they're digging holes under the road. And I got 4 guys in the ditch and they're covered in mud. Those guys work hard. Those guys ain't making that much money. Working hard is not the key. Working hard and working smart is the key. You got to find something that your hard work is going to be able to scale to the point that you can make the kind of money you want to make. So don't get tripped up in this, you got to work hard to be successful. That's not true. You got to work hard and smart. So there's got to be both. That's number one. Number two, I'm like you. If I'd have known then what I know now, like I own 19 rental properties today. If I'd have started buying one a year back when I was 20, I'd have 35 of them today, and Lord have mercy, they'd be worth a fortune. So we got to go back to this question. You're in your 20s, you're in your early 30s, and you've decided what you want. Tell me what that is. And then we will determine how you're going to get there. And I do everything about growth and success is all about reverse engineering the end goal. And I think this is so important, and too many people don't do it. They're like, I'm going to start my business. I'm going to pound, but you have no idea how to get to the ultimate goal. I always start at the back and come this way, right? My ultimate goal is I want to make $1 million a year. Okay, when do you want to make that? Well, I'm going to make it in 10 years. Great. So it's 1,900,800,765,4,3,2,1. Now, where are you today? Let's get to 100. Let's set a progressive goal and let's beat it. But we always know what that end goal is, right? It's like somebody wants to build a big company. I say, tell me what the company looks like at the end. It's $1 million a year business. How big is it? How many employees? How many sales? What product? How many leads? Build a pro forma, build a P&L on what that business looks like. And then we can back our way all the way down to where you are today and figure out how to get from A to B, right? And if it's passive income, then we know it's not going to be you doing all the work. You're going to have to build a business with teams, or you're going to have to invest in other types of properties or business assets, or it's building a business that allows you to generate enough income that you can invest all your money into those passive income assets. So again, we go back to what is it you want? Tell me when you want it. Let's reverse engineer the goal. If it's passive income, then let's show you how to do that. But I hate to say it redundantly, but you got to tell me what you want first, and then we'll figure out how to get you there. Too many people don't ever do that.
No, brother, it's literally my next question was the importance of reverse engineering and the way you stepped through it beautifully. It seems so complex, and then you're like step, step, step. And now you have the simple thing for you to go tackle today.
Yes.
With the end goal in mind. I love that. I want to switch gears just a little bit with AI becoming so prevalent in our world today. How are you embracing it, utilizing it, really using it to your advantage? If you are, I imagine you are a smart business guy, but how are you using that today in your businesses?
I use it as an idea generator. To me, it's the most amazing idea generator out there. So, and a funny story, I just finished my second book, launched last week. The book, it's called No, right? The Psychology of Sales and Negotiation. It'll be a Wall Street Journal bestseller tomorrow. Okay.
Wow. Congrats.
It did really well. Our first week out, we crushed it. So, but one of the funny things I did in that book is, most books have a foreword written by somebody, big name, famous person, whatever, the most famous person you know. I actually had ChatGPT write the foreword to the book. And I said, write 3 paragraphs on this title about me using information online, and boom, it ripped off 3-paragraph forward. It made me sound really good. Like It is an amazing technology. But I do it in business. I'm like, hey, I need to design a new menu on something. Rip me off 20 items based on yada, yada, yada. And it gives me ideas, and I can take those ideas and then capitalize on them. I think anybody who's not using ChatGPT or AI to generate ideas is missing. They're missing the boat, because that thing is, it's going to be world changing.
Tell me more, brother, about the book. Congrats. That's awesome. That's a great accomplishment. And finishing the book, obviously, but to hit that bestseller, that's amazing. I'm really proud of you and happy for you. Tell me more about No, and what was what made you want to do that second book? What's it all about, brother? Why do I want to go pick it up? Because clearly enough people looked at it and said, yes. What is in that that's just, it's going to make me better. It's going to help me become Brian Will and everything that he's done.
Well, the first book, The Dropout Multimillionaire, which is 37 business lessons and how to succeed with no money, no education, and no clue. That book is built for people who are launching companies or in the beginning stages of launching companies, right? That's kind of what it was geared for. But in the last 20 years, I've trained over 1,000 salespeople. I've been a consultant to Fortune 500 companies. I've done turnaround work in direct-to-consumer call centers. Sales makes the world go round. I said that earlier. And good sales is way better than bad sales. And so many people that are in sales are either trying to learn the cheesy sales lines or trying to, I call them slammers, or just manipulate people into doing things they don't want to do. And I hate that. It's not necessary. And it's never going to make you a master salesperson. And it's never going to be a lifetime career. So I literally took a sales course that I have taught for 20 years. And then I charge $5,000 a day to teach. And I broke it down into this book and said, look, here's the highlights of the sales course. And here's how you use the psychology behind the sales process to understand what your client is thinking, right, during your conversation with them. And it's overcoming objections prior to the client having them, which is the key to master sales. And so it really gets into the psychology side of how to do things, how to script them, what to say, when to say, how to say it, so that you disarm people, you get around that defensive mistrust position that everybody takes in the beginning of the sales process. It really dives deep into that. And I tell people, if you'll just take a few of these little things and just try them, they will work. It's not about manipulation. It's just about understanding what the other person's thinking, right? So like the very first objection every client ever has. What do you think that is, JM?
I got to think about it.
I got you on the spot. So here's the very first objection. And people don't like salespeople. That's the first objection, right? And it's not that they don't like you. You're probably a great guy. You probably teach Little League on the weekends and you have parties at your house and everybody has fun. But when you put that salesperson hat on, people no longer trust you. They don't really like you right now. They're not going to listen to you because there is a defensive wall of mistrust between your client and you when you first start talking. That is an objection that you need to overcome. Otherwise, your client is going to be in defensive mode during the entire sales process. You got to get them out of that defensive mistrust so that they'll be more open to listening to you. And we teach people how to do that. Most people think they have to overcome objections during the closing process. They've already lost it. They need to start overcoming objections before they even talk to the client, in the first words that come out of your mouth, right? The first 2 minutes of a conversation is how you start breaking down those walls of mistrust and open them up. And if you don't understand that psychology, then you're not going to do as good as you can do. If you start to understand it, your sales will double and triple, because that's the way it works.
You know, I love this. And gosh, we could go into sales. I love this so much because I used to teach so much on this. For instance, the fake rapport versus a genuine, real, authentic getting to know someone. And
active listening.
Yeah, it's so night and day to walk into your room. And for instance, Brian, I walk into his office and I say, hey, Brian, I see you have execute, failure, and success. Is that important to you? Why do you have that behind you? And then I just sit back and I listen, right? Mm-hmm. Versus I could come in and say, oh, execute, failure, success. You know what? I have blah, 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 which is what I see so many salespeople do. Where in the world do we learn this cheesy sleazy sales, because that's what gets the bad name. Sales is not bad. Sales is amazing, but I think that's what gets the bad name. Where did it come from, man?
9 out of 10 sales courses that are available online. Everybody's trying to throw those cheesy sales. I give you an example. This is a very, very well-known organization. If I said the name, you'd know it, and they do billions of dollars in apartments. Okay. Now you know who I'm talking about. And they started this thing where they're like, we have people calling in and they need coaches, and we will bring you into the organization and you can be one of our coaches, and we'll send you clients as fast as you can take them. And I was like, well, I'm interested. So I call up and I get this kid on the phone, and he's like, so Brian, what's your pain point? I said, I don't have a pain point. He goes, well, what problem am I trying to solve for you today? I literally said, dude, you got to stop reading your script. Like, just stop. Just like, let's just have a conversation and talk about what you guys do and how we might be able to work together. Okay, but what's your pain point? I'm like, first of all, bring your voice down an octave. Don't sound like you're on cocaine. Okay. Just have a conversation with me. I'm just a guy, right? Quit being a cheesy salesperson. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. I said, all right, we're done. And I hung up. You're never going to be a master salesperson throwing cheesy lines out with your voice up an octave, acting like you're on cocaine. What's going on, man? I'm so excited. I hate that.
Brother, we could do an entire episode on how much I dislike that, and the fact that it obviously has worked for some,
sure,
but it has absolutely created the distrust you talked about with salespeople, and that's distinguishing ourselves from that. Brother, I can't believe it. I looked at the time. I'm like, holy shit, it's 43 minutes already. I want to give you just open forum. Any question I didn't know enough to ask you that you just want to make sure to get to the audience before we start to wrap up?
Yep. So I'm going to tell you a little story. I'd like to end these podcasts with, to make the point that I've said over and over and over. And I use the example of Apple Computer, right? And I said this a little bit earlier. So you know who runs Apple, right? Tim Cook. So Tim Cook runs one of the largest companies in the world, one of the most profitable companies out there. And Tim has what's called a board of directors. And you know what a board of directors is, right? The board of directors come from all different industries. They're not computer guys. They're higher education, and Al Gore's on there. And there's somebody from the petroleum industry and just all these different industries, but they are business leaders in their own sense. And they come in once a quarter. And I always joke, they roll into the giant boardroom at Apple and they get their Jimmy John subs, and they're sitting there and they're like, all right, Tim, tell us what's going on at Apple. And he's like, oh my God, I got problems in China, and Foxconn's a issue, and I got labor issues, and I got, and they all say, okay, well, based on what, we've done in our past and our experience, these are the things we think you should consider when you make decisions to move Apple forward. And then Tim Cook takes all their advice, and then he goes and he moves Apple forward. Plus, the board also pays for Tim Cook. I only found this out when I was on Meltzer's podcast. They pay for him to have an executive coach on top of that, just to deal with his personal stuff and what he does in his life. If Tim Cook, who's really a smart guy, needs an entire board of directors and a personal coach, an executive coach, to help him make decisions, what in the world makes you think you don't?
Brother, that's powerful. Literally, I just wanted to let that sit for a moment, because that is so strong. I've used the Michael Jordan analogy. I love the Tim Cook in the business. And now it's so true. It's absolutely brilliant. Brother, if people want to connect with you online, find out about you find the book, where's the best place for them to connect with you online, Brian?
So my website is www.brianwillmedia.com. So my podcasts, my guest appearances, my books, we actually have a one-day masterclass coming up in July. We're going to do 5 hours of training on sales and negotiation and closing techniques. So that's coming up. All that information is on the website, brianwillmedia.com. Check it out. If you want some more information, leave me a message and we'll get back to you.
Brother, you crushed it. I mean, we could do hours of this, because you're so easy to talk to, and it's all real world applicable experience. And that's what I love. It's not some armchair quarterback. You literally gave story after story. Brilliant interview, brother. I appreciate you showing up the way you did.
And this was friggin' awesome. I appreciate it so much.
You guys, go get the book. I mean, he already hit Wall Street bestseller, but let's support and let's grow your business. Anyone that is looking to increase their sales, I will vouch based on the conversation. He said golden nugget after golden nugget, which I don't even like to say the word nugget, but it's true, man. He was just dinging one after another, and he nailed it. Share this out with somebody that's looking to grow their business the way Brian did. And it's not all sunshine and rainbows. He told you about some of the ugly in the beginning. I love that about it. Make sure to share it with your friends. I appreciate y'all. Until next time, remember your mindset matters. We'll talk soon.
Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, JM Ryerson.